everybody, my name is Joey. Welcome to my channel. Today I am designing some very simple bead woven ladder stitch bracelets with fringe, and I've done two different versions here. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it before I get started and preface everything by saying that if you're not a bead weaver and you have never attempted needle and thread jewelry making, I hope you'll consider this project because it's super simple and it's very relaxing. So this one is done with all 8/0 seed beads except for the fringe. I did some 11/0 seed bead picots. In every other one is this little gold teardrop. I can't remember where I got these, but this is what they look like. So, you know, if you like this, go into your stash and you know, see what you have that might work as a little embellishment. So that's what I did. And then also on this one, I used some Crystal Rose Montees up there called Color Shift Sphinx, and that's the little sparkle that's embellished on the top. And those came from Potomac Beads, and I recently got those, so I can link those. I also have a Czech glass button here that I embellished. That's also from Potomac Beads. And then on this one, I used some 8/0 Delica beads for my center part, and I did my fringe in a mix of 8/0 beads and 11/0 seed beads, and then just pop some flowers. These are the little Czech glass daisy spacers, and I just did some embellishment in the middle and just have a little flower garden running down the end, and I just designed a little loop closure, and they're just so much fun. So you can see the different looks that you get. This one looks more like a cuff. It's, you know, looks quite solid because I kept the same piece going, and you can alternate your colors. Once I show you how it's done, I'm sure you'll be like me, where you think of a million different ways to compile this bracelet. So let me set these guys aside and show you what's on the work table today. So I'm going to do a third one. I can lay these here for inspiration. I'm going to do a third one that is going to be in oranges, as you can see, and I have a Czech glass button here that has a shank, and so if you wanted to use this kind of a button, you would actually add it on the top of your weave after you're all done, the same way that you do an embellishment. But I really like this little Czech glass AB orange button. I really like embellishing, so you can use either one, and I'm going to just leave them out here. I'm also using a number 10 beading needle, but you might want to do a 12 because it's a bit smaller, and for these bracelets you do have to pass through your middle section quite a lot, so a smaller needle might make for a more pleasant process in making it. And I am stringing on some Wildfire 10-pound in this beautiful pink color. I can also link that, but honestly, you could use the 6-pound. You could really use what you have. If you have dragon thread from Potomac Beads, you could use that, but I found this pink and I really love it. You don't even need a stop bead to get started. And for this design, what I'm going to be using is some 8/0 orange seed beads. They're just a bright opaque orange, and that's going to be this center section down the bracelet. And here's where you have to start making a design decision. I did 4 of the 8/0 Delicas here, but I did 5 of the 8/0 seed beads here, and I think I'm going to do the 5 again on this one. And all of these other beads are going to be my fringe. So let me show you how to get started. As I said, not even using a stop bead. I'm going to put 5 beads on my needle and bring it down to create a tail. Now I have a really long piece of string here because I didn't want to have to add in too many times, and it does use a lot of bead thread. But adding in is also not a big deal. But I'm going to leave a pretty good tail, and I'm not even using a stop bead. You know, you could if you want to, but I'm going to come and pick up another 8 and kind of lay it. I'm not 8, I'm so sorry, another 5. And I'm just going to lay it beside, bring it down and lay it in a line. So just trying not to confuse you. can just lay it right beside that one. Just hold it with my thumb and forefinger and just get them to sit beside each other. There's nothing holding it together at this point, so it just looks like that. And then I'm going to go up that first row, and you'll see why this is called a ladder stitch when you get going. It looks a little bit like a ladder that you might drop down from a tree house when you get going. So I'm just going to get it started like that and go back down through. If you are familiar with bead weaving patterns, this is probably totally a no-brainer to you, but if you're not, or if you're just not familiar with the ladder stitch, it definitely needs reinforcement, but you're going to do that at the end when you go to add your embellishment. So, and it's a little, you know, like everything really, getting started is always the most challenging. So it looks like that, and I'm going to pick up another 5, and my thread is coming out the bottom, so I'm going to go making a loop. So every time you're just making a loop. When you pull, you'll see that that 5 makes like another step on the ladder. And don't get stressed and think that you're doing something wrong, that it's very loose right now. That is the way it's supposed to be. And you will see your thread here, but when we go back and add the fringes on, that everything tightens and it starts to look now you're really coming great out here, and we need to be up here so we can continue to add rows. So you're going to pass your needle back up to the top of that last row that you added in and pull. Your tension is kind of important on ladder stitch, and so I'm tugging now, and it's only the 3rd row and it's already tightening up. This one is going to remain loosey-goosey like that. And now you just continue with what you've been doing, another 5 beads, and I chose 5 as I said, but this middle section that your fringe will add on to, you could do 6, 7, you know, however wide you want it. And so now you can see we're coming out the top. I'm going to come back up, and you're just making a loop, and when you pull, that last little row, that last group of 5 is going to pull right in line and be your next step. It's still quite loose, but now we're again not where we need to be to add the next 5. So we're going to go down to the bottom, run your needle through all 5, and this is where you'll get a chance to pull it tight. Pull it tight, and now another 5. And now you can see where you have to go. We have to make another loop, so we're going to put the needle from the bottom back down to the top, and when we pull, those 5 are going to be like little soldiers, go right into place. So it looks like that, and I'm here. I need to get back up to the top. So, and just, you know, you get to where you can totally see it, because if I were to add my beads right now, they would not lay in place, and also, you know, I would have too much thread here on the end. So I'm just going to run my needle back up to the top and pull it tight. So you're sort of reinforcing, but also getting in position for the next row. And so now that I have a few in, you can see these are just Czech glass seed beads. These are not Miyuki or Toho, so they're a variation in them. They're not perfectly perfectly the same size. I don't mind that, because I know that on this bracelet I'm going to be putting these carved shell flowers and these Czech glass daisies, and I'm going to embellish the top like I did on these, so I don't really mind it. But if you want a more uniform bracelet, and maybe if you don't want to add embellishment on the top, do something like this. These are Miyuki 80 seed beads. So these seed beads are more uniform in size, and you get a little bit more uniform look. So if you care about that, that's something to consider when you're choosing your beads for this project. I don't mind that. I like the look of it, especially in the fun colors. So I don't mind that. I'm going to do a word of caution here as well. I learned this myself with this bracelet design. If the seed bead that you choose for the middle is not too small, but has too small of a hole, you will not be able to complete your design. And you'll see when this is done and we start adding fringe, we will be passing through the center section many more times with needle and thread. So you need a decent size hole to accommodate the passes that you need to make for this design. So just a word of caution, because what happened to me is I wanted to scale this down, and I just had some very inexpensive Czech glass seed beads for my center. And when I started adding my fringe, even the smallest needle I had and thread would not go through. I broke a couple of seed beads and I had to start over. So you really need to have a good size hole for your foundation of your bracelet, is what I'm trying to say. So let's do a couple more. So now that I have a few rows done, you can kind of see what happens. I do want to watch my tension and pull it tight, but you'll see that even when you put it down, the rows don't want to stay lined up perfectly. And I just wanted to show you this, because don't think that you're doing a bad job or anything is wrong if you have this. It's the nature of the stitch, and we're not finished with this. Believe me, when we go back and add the fringe, you can see how beautifully it secures everything. Everything flattens and smooths out as you add the edges onto it. So you just continue this way with your same amount of seed beads and get to your desired length. And the cool thing about this pattern is that what I've been doing is this first row that we put on, I am beading to my length and adding my button on this end. My loop is going to go on this end, but if I feel like I need to shorten or lengthen my bracelet, this end is still open, so you can, make those adjustments and not have to redo everything. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm coming out of the top, so I'm going to go up from the bottom with my 5 beads on and just pull it into place. My thread is still quite long at this point, but I did that on purpose. And now you can see like that one needs to be reinforced, so we're going to go back down. Make sure you don't skip a bead. That will mess up your pattern. And pull this to the end. Okay, I have a lot of my length done, so you can kind of see what it looks like. And you know, as I said, it is a little bit loose, even though I have really good tension. The rows don't always lay flat, but don't think you did anything wrong. It's the nature of the stitch. And I'm going to do my last few rows. So I've picked up my 5 seed beads. I'm coming out the top, so I'm going to come back around from the bottom and go up. It's really just an up, down, and just being careful not to pierce my thread and shred it with the needle. And just pull tight. Now I'm over here, so now I want to get back down to the bottom. Pull tight. Pick up another 5 beads and I'll check my length. Okay, I know on this one I did about 50 rows, I think. So I'm just going to measure it. You can also, you know, at this point, lay it on your wrist. So I do need to do a couple more rows. And just to let you know, the tube of seed beads that I'm working from is 22 grams. It was brand new when I started, and I'm not even quite using a third of a tube. So if you do 8 seed beads, 8 grams should, 8 to 10 should get you a bracelet length if you're just doing the center, if you're going to design this the way that I'm designing mine. So if you're looking at your supplies, hopefully that will help. And so I'll also, when we get to the fringe, I'll explain a little bit more. But these piles here, this, and this, that is all that I have of those. They are left over from summer camp, Jesse James Bead summer camp last year. That is all that I have, and I love the colors so much. So this other pile is one that I have a full tube of because I want to design a fringe pattern similar to what I did here so that I can use these and not run out. I don't think that I have enough with all of these to do my entire fringe, so I went into my stash and added in. So when you're designing your piece, you know, you have to kind of keep the quantities in mind, but it's very forgiving. You can really design it however you want, you know, make it work. Okay, I'm at my desired length. And what I do on these is put it around my wrist, and I don't want it super tight, and I need a little space here because, as you see, we're going to need a loop for the button and then a loop for going around the button on these. So it does take up you know, maybe 3/4 of an inch of your length. But as I said, this end is open, so I like to go ahead and put my button on first, and then when I work my way back down to make my loop, my button's affixed, so I can check to make sure my loop is the right size. And also if I need to pull 1 or 2 rows off to adjust my length, you know, this side is just hanging out. So that's the way that I've been doing them, and it works pretty well. So to do your button, you're coming out one side and you have to decide what bead, like let me pull this one up a little closer. Since I had multi-colors on this bracelet, I had to decide what bead I wanted for the color of my little T-bar, and I like to do a bead in the center that my loop is going to go back through. So I am going to pull in some of those 8 seed beads in that gold, and that's what I'm going to use to add my loop, add my button. So I'm just going to take a few of these 8 golds and put them out here. These are galvanized perma finish, so that way you know, they won't darken and this doesn't rub off so easily. I'm just going to design a little pattern. And you know, here's where this is such a fun thing because you can design this however you want. Let me untangle myself. I'm going to do an 8 gold and 2 orange gold, and then I'm going to take my button and feed that on, and then I'm going to choose some beads to come out of the middle of my button here, and I think it's going to be an 11/0 gold and one of these 11/0, one of these, and 11/0. Just a little alternating pattern, and go back down through my button. Check to see what my pattern looks like. It's very pretty. I love it. Okay, and now I'm going to pick up 2 more orange, and 1 more 8/0 gold. And I'm going to go back in from the opposite side and pull that. So my button is affixed and it's very wobbly, so I'm going to go back up and reinforce. So go up through the 8/0 beads, go up through the button, and just go through every one of those beads again, even these little 11/0s, and back down through the button and back down through the 8/0s. And this puts you in position to start your fringe. Get myself untangled here. And you can reinforce. I'm going to pull my button. You can reinforce a couple of times. I've just been doing it twice and it looks great. And I'm just going to run this again back through that first row and come out the other side. Just like a double reinforcement there. And now we're ready to start our fringe and design the fringe. So as you can see, I've designed my fringe differently on each of my bracelets. And what I think I'm going to do is start with this color near my button. And what I plan to do is do 2 fringes of this color, and then 1 of this color, 2 of this color, 1 of this color, 2 of this color, to get my desired length. And like on this one, actually on both of them, I varied the length of my fringe. I just thought it added a beautiful texture. And so I'm gonna do that same thing again. This one I also varied the length of my fringe, but just by 1 bead. So it's just a little, it makes it a little spiky or a little jagged, and it's just really textural. Like, I didn't even put this on my arm to show you. Look how stunning that is. And you can wear these with the button on the top. I don't want to drop it and make a mess, but you can wear these with the button on the top, because the button is quite, you know, the button and the loop is quite decorative. They're just really beautiful and comfortable. Like, after all the beads are on, it has a little bit of a weight to it. They're just really, really, really beautiful bracelets. So let me get going on my fringe. And again, you can, just like the middle section, how you could make this as wide or as thin as you want. You can also do your fringe super long, or, you know, very short, you know, whatever you know, appeals to your taste. So I'm going to start with this one here, and I think I'm going to start with just 5. Let me see how that looks. Nope, I'm going to do 7. These are 11/0s. So when you're designing, check to see if you like the length, and I like the look of 7. So I just strung 7 beads on. And for your tip bead, you can do a bicone crystal, a rondelle crystal, you could do another 8/0 seed bead, you could do, like on this one, I put those little tiny metal drops that I had. Whatever you like to do your tip, you know, it's going to be the edge of your fringe. But on this bracelet, I'm going to do, let me move these guys out of the way because I don't need them anymore. I'm going to do the picot. I do tatting, so if you know what tatting is, then this is going to make sense. But the picot is 3 beads, so I have 3 11/0 seed beads on my needle, and I'm going to go back down through my 7 beads that I just added. Not only through the 7 beads, but also through the row that they are coming out. Put my hand behind it so you can see. So I'm picking up my amount, 7 for my first fringe, 3 of my accent bead, and going back down through the 7 and the 5 in the first row. And I'm just going to pull it all the way through, and when you pull it tight, those 3 seed beads form a little picot. Just pull it tight and they form like this pretty little picot edge. And now I'm going to come to this side and do the same thing. I'm going to pick up 7, and 3. They drop down right there. I'm going to skip those 3 and run my needle through my 7 and my 5 again. Make sure you don't skip a bead. And also make sure you're coming out the 5 and you're not going back through your first fringe. So now you see why I said that you'll be passing through this middle section an awful lot. And so you need to make sure that you have seed beads with, you know, large enough holes to accommodate that, and pull tight. So it looks really weird at this point, I know, but it's so beautiful. And the more you do, the better it looks. So now we just have to go make a bridge. So just go across right here and get to the other side. So you're continuing the same thing, just up and down, and pull this nice and tight. And now we're coming out here. We're in a position to do the next bit of fringe. So as I said, I'm going to do 2 of each of this color. So 4, 5, 6, 7, and 3 gold. And I'm going to go back through my 7 11-0s and my 5 orange 8-0s. And again, trying not to pierce your thread, and pull tight. Get the little picot in order. And same thing again. Skip my 3 gold and run my needle through my 7 and my 5. Come out right there and pull tight. And now I'm coming out that hole, so I need to jump over to the next row. So just put the needle through like that and pull tight. And now, as I said, in between each of these that I don't have a lot of, I'm going to create a longer row of the one that I have a full tube of. So let's go for 10. Oh, I wanted to do something else cute here too. I'm gonna, at the base of the ones that I have a lot of, I'm gonna do an 8-0 seed bead on that fringe and then do my 10. And then 3 11-0 gold. And same thing, skip the gold and run my needle back down through my 10 11-0s, my gold 8-0, and my 5 orange. And pull. So as you can see, you can design your bracelet any way you want. You can design your fringe, you know, whatever colors you want. If you wanted to do it all in the exact same bead, then it would look like a really wide cuff, kind of like I did here, but I only had small tubes of these seed beads, so I chose 3 colors. But I did the center, the ladder section, and the fringe in the same colors for this one. And you know, and on this one I designed my fringe to be every other one has a metal drop and then a gold seed bead picot, a metal drop. I did every other one. And so really you can design this. It's so easy to design these bracelets and so much fun. I'm loving the way that that looks. So I'm going to come to this side and do the same thing, an 8/0 and then 10 of these. My 3 gold for my picot. Bring it down. Skip my gold and go through my 10, through my gold 8/0, and back through those same ones that we just came through, and pull tight. And now I have to get over to my next row. So it looks like that. Just skip over to here. And I'm ready for my next color. So I'm going to do 7 of these. And 3 gold. Skip my 3 gold and run my needle back down through my 7 11/0s and my 5 orange 8/0s and pull. And then the same thing on this side, 7 of these. And 3 gold. And pull. Next row. So in doing your fringe, you are reinforcing your base bracelet and, you know, making the bridges you need to add the fringe side to side, and you will further reinforce this if you decide to go back and add embellishments like I'm going to be doing these flowers, but you can actually leave it totally plain. It's quite beautiful even without extra embellishment. But you know, the reinforcement happens as you're adding your fringe on. It's quite a lovely pattern. I really enjoy it. It's effortless. It's not difficult. There's, you know, not much to keep track of. You can work on it without, I want to do 2 of those, I'm skipping. You can work on it without, you know, watching step-by-step instructions, because it's the same step every time. So I'm going to repeat in this color. Okay, I am on my last little section here, and full disclosure, you guys, it is the next day. I had to go to the emergency room yesterday. I had a doctor's appointment. I'm just dealing with a situation, and they sent me straight to the emergency room. So after a CAT scan and an EKG, and, you know, I'm okay. I'm back. I'm like the little fish. Instead of just keep swimming, I sing, just keep beating, just keep beating. But I wanted to, I'm really enjoying this bracelet, and let me just kind of stretch it out and show you. It looks amazing, and I really even love it just plain. It's this really cool fringy cuff, and really and truly we could be done right here, but when I lay it out with these tropical flowers, like those little tropical flowers, I just love those. So, and I only have 5 of them, so I think I am going to add them, but let me get my last 7 here. And then my 3 gold. I really did want to share with you a couple of things now at this point in the project, because this is such a unique beading pattern for a bracelet, because I've come to this end where I'm about to add my loop, and I am going to pull out this first row that I put in because I feel like it's going to make my length better. And that's one of the really cool things about this ladder stitch bracelet is, you know, most bracelets, you don't have that adjustability. You have to figure that out before you get started. But like when I put this on my wrist, it's just going to be about perfect when I get my loop on there. So I'm going to pull this row out, and also just for, if you look at this end, my pattern, I had the two shorter ones, the longer one, the two shorter ones, and I've ended on a different color, but essentially the same. So that's what's really cool. And in fact, you could even leave that last row. Let me have a look and see. I could even leave that last row and do my loop right from here, which I think maybe I will leave it, but I wanted you to see that you could pull it out. Like, we reinforced only one circle, so you could pull this out, but I'm gonna like do the opposite and tighten it. And I'm gonna go back through it again then. In fact, I'll tie a knot right here, and when I go back through, it will pull my tail inside a little bit. I'm going to do it one more time just for good measure, and then I'll start my way back down the ladder. And so I also, as I'm sitting here beading, because this is so relaxing and easy and repetitive, and I was literally just counting 7, 1, 2, 3, 7, 1, 2, 3, and then 10, 1, 2, 3. Like, that was my mantra through the whole thing. So let me go back through this bead here and start making the loop. Let me pull this through, and I'll lay it flat again. As you can see, the ripples that were sort of happening across the stitch, so just pull that in, and I'm going to take my scissors and snip that right there. So you remember at the beginning I showed you how this wasn't perfectly flat. There was like a little bit of rippling. When you go back and do your fringe, you are also reinforcing, and everything just smooths out just perfectly. And even though these are just Czech glass 8/0 seed beads in the middle, it's still very uniform and very beautiful. So this can be done with inexpensive seed beads. So you could do your loop really simple, just like that, just coming out of your last row and just do a simple loop. But I'm going to do my loop another way. So I'm going to leave that gold seed bead. I'm going to take all these off and show you another way to do your loop. Neither way is hard. It's not like one for beginners and one for advanced beaders. They're both super easy. And I do them both ways, and it's two different looks, but I'm going to do this just the other way. Let me back my little pattern off there, and I'm gonna do like one. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little pattern here where I have those 3 and then an 8/0, and then I'm gonna do the pattern for my loop. So from here, the rest of what I'm stringing is what has to fit around the loop. I'll show you. I'm going to do what I was doing, 3 of the coral color, a gold, 3 coral and a gold. And so now I'm going to come to this 8/0, and I'm going to run my needle back through that 8/0 only, and then repeat the same thing. Let me pull it tight so you can see what it does. You know, I would normally be doing this with this laying flat on my mat, but I'm trying to hold it up to the camera so that you can see. And really, this is much easier when you're not filming yourself doing it. It feels very awkward. So that's my loop that I would be making, and then I would do another 3 and another 8/0 seed bead. But before I do that, I just want to pull this tight and check to see if my button goes through, and it does, but it's going to be tight. So I'm going to come back through my 8/0 and I'm going to add another section of beads. I don't want this to be too difficult to take on and off, so I'm going to do another gold and another 3, and that should be perfect. And now back down through that 8/0, pull it tight, and then I'm going to repeat 3 and an 8/0 gold. And I'll show you when I pull it tight what it looks like. So we're looking like that. There's my gold, and I'm going to go back down through the last row in the opposite direction. Make sure I don't pierce my knot or my thread. Just find that sweet spot to get through the row. And before I reinforce, I'm just going to double check the closure, and if I like it, and that is perfect. So now I'll reinforce. So I'm just going to run my thread back through everything again, up through those 3, up through my 8/0. Just go through that loop. Make sure you don't skip a bead. Back through the 8/0 and back down to the other side. And back through that first row. And right here I'm going to get another wingspan of thread, because I've decided, as I work my way back down, adding in my flower embellishments, I've decided that I'm also going to add something else into my fringe. So let me get another wingspan of thread. I'm going to move down here a little bit away from my loop. And when you're finding your thread path, you want to just choose the path that won't show your thread. So I'm just sticking with my ladder stitch. You don't want to skip down 2 or 3 because, obviously you'll see your thread. Okay, I'm just going to pull. I just went to the next row, and I'm just going to pull that knot inside, and now I can come right here and get rid of these tails. Okay, and so let me show you what I decided to do. This happens to me all the time when I'm sitting and stringing, is I keep designing in my head. And so I really love the dot of gold, the larger dot of gold with the 8/0 seed beads that I did at the base. So what I've decided to do is go to my two shorter strands all the way down the length of my bracelet, as I'm reinforcing and as I'm adding in my flowers, I'm going to go up 3. I'm going to go up just the bottom 3 on the fringe. I've pulled my fringe tight, so, you know, just have to be patient to do this. But I have my needle coming up the 3, and I'm going to pull that, and it's quite long because I just added thread in to make it back down to the other end of my bracelet. But I'm going to pull that, and I'm going to pick up an 8/0 gold, and then I'm going to go across to the 3rd seed bead, put my needle going back down toward the bracelet. Just get in there. Okay, so I'm going back down, and I'm going to go all the way through my base and come up to the 3rd, up through the 3rd one on the other side. If it's possible to do it in one pass, you know, that will be easier. So when I pull this, that 8/0 seed bead is going to create a little bit of negative space in between my 2 short fringe pieces. It's quite long because it's my very first row since I added in thread, but you do use up thread pretty quickly with this pattern. So let me show you. When I pull, see what happens? That creates this little bit of negative space, and it just does a little something to the fringe. So let me do it again. I'm on this side. I'm going to pick up an 8/0 gold, and I'm going to go to the 3rd bead on the next bit of fringe, the next strand of fringe, and just, you know, you can even like bend the fringe to get your needle in there at the top of the 3rd seed bead, and I'm going to poke it through, go through my middle bead, and this time I'm not going up the fringe. This time I want to come out at my dark orange base. So just, everything's tight now because I've reinforced, you know, I've gone back and added the fringe. So, but you can totally do it. So see where my needle is coming out right here, and then I'm going to pull this tight and get my pliers to help me. So this is like further reinforcement and adding in a further embellishment. And as I go down doing this to every fringe, I'm also going to, since I have to come to the middle here, this is where I'm going to start adding in my flowers. So my next decision here will be where to add my first flower, and I'm going to come to this row. So you never want to do more than 1 row at a time because you really want to follow, you know, weave through the exact pattern, that same thread path, so that you don't see any thread on your bracelet. Minimize, you know, you barely see thread on this, but you definitely want to minimize it. So I'm just going to pull tight and see where I'm at, and I think I'm going to come over and do my next 8/0 seed bead and then do my first flower. So I'm going to go ahead and come, see, I'm coming down, and there's only 1 bead. I want to get 3. I want my needle to come out at that 3rd one, just like that. Push it through. To work around the fringe, but you know, like, it's not that bad. Okay, so now I'm coming out my 3rd bead on the next color of my shorter fringe, and I'm going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead and go right to the 3rd one in the next row of fringe. This is the tricky part, but it can be done. Okay, and then go through the bottom 3 and go all the way through my orange base and the 3 on the other side. when I pull, situate that 8/0 seed bead right there. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love that kind of chunky dot of gold. And then I'm going to come to this side, pick up an 8/0, and same thing, I'm coming across to my third bead and go back through the row, and this time only come out at the before the fringe, only going across the base, and push that through. Oh my, that is so pretty. Okay, and let's see. I want to add my flower. I'm going to come to my next row, and these I normally add in my flowers at random. So I'm going to come to the next row and just go in and out the first bead. And I'm going to pick up one of my, I don't remember where I got these. I think it might be BB Craft. These are super thin. They're carved shell, like Hawaiian flowers, and I just love the tropical look with my fruit punch oranges and citrusy colors here in my seed bead bracelet. So I'm just going to let that drop down right there. Then I'm going to pick up one of these Czech glass gold daisy spacers, and I'm going to pick up one of my orange beads and just get those beads down into the center of that flower like that. And then I'm going to skip over my orange bead, that's my stopper bead, and go back through my Czech glass flower and my shell flower, and I'm going to come to the next, pull them out of the way, I'm going to come to the next bead in the row, get my needle in there and go back across and just come out right there. And I'm going to tack my flowers down just like that, working my way down the length of my bracelet. I have 5 flowers, so I'm just going to randomly intersperse them, and then I'll decide if it's enough. I may go back and just do just some of my spacers on the orange if I feel like it needs it. You know, this is like, I love this pattern because I can design as I go, but look how gorgeous that is. And then let me just see where I am. I'm coming out right here. So now I'm just going to continue down my ladder. So I'm going to go to my next row and just my base bracelet, you know, my 8/0 orange beads, that's my ladder stitch. So I'm just going to work my way down the ladder. So again, a little bit more reinforcing, and now I'm going to come to this side, and it's going to be the same thing, up the, going through all of my base stitches and picking up the first 3 11/0 seed beads on my fringe. Just wiggle my needle in there. Nope, I'm going to get in there, okay, just like that. And I'm going to pull my needle out. Make sure my loop isn't grabbing onto anything, and pick up another 8/0 gold seed bead and go right across to the third bead in the next bit of fringe and come down through those 3 11/0s, my center, and if I can, it's coming out the center, and if I can, want to grab those first 3 in this bit of fringe. So I was able to do it in one pass. So I'm going to push my needle through and just continue like that. I'm going to pull this through. It gets a little bit less to manage as you work your way down your ladder, because you'll start to use up some of that thread that you added in. Just pull, and that lays that 8/0 seed bead right there in between the fringe. And now I need to do my 8/0 seed bead for this side. So same thing, feed that 8/0 on and grab my bottom 3 beads of my fringe and come through my orange, and this time not go into the fringe. This time I just want to get that needle through, and I'm going to work my way down the ladder, adding in my flowers like that and adding in my 8/0 gold seed bead in between all my shorter fringe pieces, all 3 colors that I alternated. So I just this is so fun designing this, because I literally have made this pattern up as I go along, and it's just repeat, repeat, repeat. And it's just really, really fun and easy, little bit of counting. So I'm going to come out like that. Okay, and right here, I'm going to do another flower. I'm going to go to my next center 8/0 seed bead, and this one is a little bit off to the left. I'm going to stagger them so they look like they're sprinkled, so I'm doing this one on the right side. So I'm just going to come up through that bead, pull tight. So now my thread is in the middle of a row, and I'm going to pick up the same stack that I did before, my carved shell flower, then a check glass daisy spacer, and then one of those bright orange 11/0s. I'm going to skip over that orange bead, go through my 2 flowers, and bring my thread to the next bead in the row, just skipping that one, and I'm going to come out my 3rd seed bead. I can do this all in one pass, so I'll be ready to add in my 8/0 fringe embellishment. Just pull it all the way through. So it's really, this is it's very convenient, because you're doing even more reinforcing, and like I say, the fringe you've added is a little something to contend with when your thread is long, but I just put my thumb in there. But you're doing adding your flower embellishment, you can reinforce, and you're getting out to your fringe at the same time. So once again, I'm going to pick up my 8/0 gold, just let that hang out on my thread, and I'm going to come across to that 3rd bead and run my needle through those bottom 3 fringe and the center and the bottom 3 fringe on the other side. And I'm just going to continue like this, sprinkling my flowers in my design and adding this beautiful pop of gold. It's just so gratifying when you pull tight and you have that little bead just sitting in there and this cool negative space, and it's just an extra texture and an extra up and down, adding in even an extra pattern, and I just love it. So another 8/0, I'm going to come across to my 3rd bottom 3 seed beads and pass through my whole row again, and this time coming out before the fringe beads. Okay, it's all finished, and I laid all 3 of them out here so that you could see how easy it is to design different looks with basically the same stitch and the same pattern. The fringe is a little bit different on all three of my bracelets. The width is a little bit different. My beads are a little bit different. The base, the ladder stitch, you can use the 8/0 delicas. You could probably even use smaller delicas or cube beads for this. 8/0 seed beads. And so on this one, I, just went up and down my ladder to the end. And then when I came back toward my loop, which is where I finished off, I was just sprinkling in my flowers just at random and just coming up through those beads, back down, and just, like taking the ladder steps back and forth. So it's totally reinforced. Like on this one, I just love adding in that extra 8/0 seed bead. I think it's gorgeous. And these are so beautiful. You could wear it like this way as a cuff, but I did mine a little bit looser. They are so easy to clasp because this little bead loop just slips over the button quite easily. But even on the top, this looks beautiful. And I have to say, I was thinking about putting a little tassel charm on this, but I just really felt like it was gorgeous just the way it is. I wouldn't wear it with my chain bracelet here that I made, but this is just so fun and so unique. And you can do I feel like this one is fall pink, and I felt like this one was just like pastel spring colors, and this is like the summer sunrise, with all the tangerine and citrusy colors of summer. And this was so relaxing, and I had so much fun. And like I said, if you're a bead weaver that, this is mindless. This is a no-brainer for a regular bead weaver. It's really relaxing. But if you've never done this type of jewelry before, I really hope you'll give this a try, because it is about the easiest that you can do. Peyote stitch is also pretty easy, but this is even easier than that. And if you do give it a try, I'd love to hear comments and feedback from you guys and updates on your projects. So open my description box. There's so many people unfamiliar with how it works, but there is a little word more that is beneath the video title, and if you tap that, it will open part of my description box. But if you tap it a second time, it will open the full thing, and there is always a list of my supplies that I like, my regular tools that I use, probably more information than you would want, but I will link my bead stringing wire. I did find this lovely pink bead stringing wire, and anything else. There's always a link to Potomac beads if you like the Montees from the fall pinks, the pansy colored bracelets. So I'm just going to thank everybody for watching. It's been a little, I don't even remember what I've said in this video because there's been a lot of interruptions. It just has been a really rough month for me, but I just keep beading, and I hope you guys will too. And I will see you in the next video. Ciao, everybody.